we usually do.
Over a little bit.
I am I'm so sorry that it took I had just received the recording like the day before. And I sent that out to you all. I know it was a little short notice for this upcoming meeting, but hope if you wanted to get a chance to review it before this, you had a chance. So.
I don't know if I want to rewatch it after being there the day it was presented, because it would probably be even more depressing to watch it again. So
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I rewatched it about an hour and a half ago, or about 2 hours ago, because it is about an hour and a half, and it certainly is something.
Well, it's a good presentation, but it comes back to the same point. Study, study, study. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and I definitely want to hear you guys' thoughts on that, because I definitely understand. I think the problem with so much, like, yes, we do have a lot of years of data, but I mean, when a data point is only taken once a year, it's very difficult to have a full picture of what that is. Like it's definitely not even valuable to show a concrete pattern in that way. But we do have a lot of solid information, just from your all's experience on the pond and a lot of things that way. But I do.
Has anybody researched the cost of what it would cost to do an alum treatment on the whole pond?
I have. So I did for part of my research, and this was like, I maybe spent about like 3 hours researching it. And looking at like price quotes, but let me pull up my research real quick. I know it was just shy under $1 million for a pond our size. And with the added information that Holly had given us last week, 2 weeks ago at the presentation, that how long the alum treatment works is very dependent on how much or how fast or what span of time the water cycles out of the body of water. And I guess Sabattus is cycled out at least a year. So I mean, that is a big deal. So I mean, if it was 10 years, if it would last 10 years, and of course, like, I don't have all the answers to these questions.
Right.
It might be a more viable route, and I'm not saying it's not a viable route now, but I just don't know what that would look like. It would be a hard sell to people to say, $1 million will buy us like a year of decent pond. Yeah.
What if you didn't turn the pond over?
And just left it as it is?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the answers to that. So I imagine when she said that, I thought about how much water comes out of the dam. So I was assuming that was the case. Like, it's how much we open the dam is how fast it comes out.
Right.
If that is the case, I mean, water would still keep pouring in if we experienced like the same summer that we had this year with very high, or if we even, have like abnormal summers like that. Water would still get out through the top of the dam like it kind of did.
Unless we built a new dam with a higher gate.
Yes. Hold on, I'm gonna go grab a pen. I was gonna grab a pen real quick. 1 second.
So he's talking about if the dam stayed the way it was, they didn't lower the water.
Yeah. Well, it's a matter of how much the water turns over.
Yeah. It was a very difficult thing here, wasn't it? To hear the quality of the water.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But
I told my wife if I was a young man starting over, I'd sell the place and go somewhere else.
yeah, somewhere else will price you right out of the market.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Waterfront property around here is twice as much as anywhere else.
All right, it is. Oh,
the other part of the whole situation too with the alum treatment, you'd have to have some kind of a boat with a GPS system to grid the lake.
from my understanding, they like whoever we would contract out to do that, or if that was the avenue people wanted to go, they would have that equipment.
Yeah, because whatever little bit of research I did on it, it's like $120 to treat 100 square feet.
Yeah.
So, individually, people could do it. And, treat your own property for what that's worth. But it's hard to say how far that would spread.
Not everybody will do it.
No, not everybody's gonna do it, is right.
I think too, the amount of how much mixing goes on in the pond too, like whatever say you would do, Ken, might not even be in front of your place by the next week,
No,
Yeah, it's true.
We're certainly all in this together in that way.
I guess to me, it still all gets down to people need to stop talking about testing and turn this subject to start talking about fixing.
Right.
That's how I look at it. I don't care anymore about your testing. I want to know what the fixing is going to be. And
The testing's all coming up with the same answer.
And I want them to, and like I said at that, the meeting we had, if we're just sitting here, if it, just tell us if it can happen or not happen.
I mean, oh, go ahead, Justin or Leslie.
Yeah, Nick, I was just curious what your thought was when Holly mentioned drawing down the lake a lot sooner than we do, and the sustained drawdown of the lake over like a 5 to 10 year period. If in your expert opinion, because you've been studying this a lot longer than we have, if you think that would have a positive impact. I can't quite remember what Dan's reaction was to that and what his thought process, but it kind of, from what I'm remembering, he didn't really think that would help. But I was just curious why she brought that up, from your point of view.
And she mentioned September, right? Like a month earlier, right?
Yeah. So originally
okay.
it was supposed to be drawn down in the beginning of September. That date has since changed now to October, and has been that way for quite some time. The original plan back in the 70s, the water level order that was worked with and provided by the DEP back then. I'm not even sure if they were called the DEP back then, but I'll have to check my notes. But it did call for September, early September for the drawdown. Like I kind of had mentioned last week, that had changed over time, because when you have localized community control over, that common pool resource that is the pond and the dam and the water level, compromises were made to favor recreation over sustainability or long-term environmental health of the pond in that way. And those are the decisions and the conversations that we really need to be having. So from that perspective, why Holly brought that up is because that was throughout my research. And granted, I'm not a scientist in that way, but I dived really heavily into it throughout my research. That was a cost-effective way to remove nutrients from the pond, is during that peak time where we see the nutrient levels are high, releasing the dam no matter what, like opening up the dam no matter what. Doesn't matter what the water level is, like just trying to get out that high levels of nutrients out as quickly as possible. I mean, you of course have to do that safely, and there's a lot more to it than that. But the research papers that I read said that was a very effective way and cost-effective way to try to mitigate some of the problems. But it gets even more complex because of what Dan had talked about, with which the soil on the bottom of the pond has historical nutrient loading that's very, very deep. And when he is right, when those beds do get exposed, they potentially can release more phosphorus in that way. And that kind of just talks about like the complexity of the issue itself. Is just like there's so many sides to this problem, And I think like the first step is really trying to identify these sides. I mean, I think that's one of the only ways how we can try to address these things, because it's not one solution. It's not just, one way to try to fix this. It's going to take many different things at once. And like Mark had brought up in that last meeting, there are some elements, although small, of the septic systems in Wales and Green around the pond that contributes as well, and it has contributed over the years. It is much smaller than the agricultural loading, but it is something to think about as well. And there is, I completely understand where you all are coming from. There is no easy side to this. There's no easy answer. And it's going to take a lot of like working together and talking it out to try to figure out what needs to happen. And I definitely do want to express we are getting somewhere. Like, we are definitely getting somewhere with this. It might not seem like it, but we certainly are. We've brought together other groups. The Lake Stewards of Maine spoke with us, the Androscoggin County Soil and Water Conservation group. I know I messed up their name. And Bates, Justin, go ahead.
Oh, Nick, I don't want to interrupt you. I was going to wait till you finished your point.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just essentially, I know it's a long process, and like I've been saying from the beginning, this is going to be decades like of work, and it's just establishing this base point, and then going from there. That's it, Justin. Go for it.
No, so I'm trying to remember from earlier meetings that we had. When you lived in Sabattus, were you a member of the town council?
I was a selectman for about 6 months, 7 months, and I actually moved out of the district, so I had to resign because I moved in with my now wife. So, yeah.
Well, that was a good move, huh?
Yeah, no, I don't regret it. I certainly don't. So,
well, I guess what I'm alluding to, or my point that I'm trying to make here is, I do not even begin to want to try to understand the history and the politics and the small town politics when it comes to the three towns. You are a lifelong resident. I am new to this area for the last 10 years. Since you started these meetings, I have not been involved in the lake at all. And that's, shame on me for being a member of the community and a property owner on the lake. But when you mentioned this kind of delicate balance of community control, sportsmen, recreation, that sort of thing, are all those decisions made by the dam commission?
So historically, they were actually made by the town of Sabattus. So when the dam passed from like the mill control, I can't remember the name of the mill at this time, but it originally belonged to the company that was right there on the river. It was given to Sabattus. And it was in Sabattus's hands up until about 1998, I believe, when the DEP had to step in with those specific complaints that I had talked about last time. Somebody nailing wooden boards to the spillway to try to increase the amount of water that the dam could hold, and then purposefully not opening the dam to benefit duck hunters downstream. That was at the time in control of Sabattus. So I mean, you're talking 2023 now, so over 20 years ago. And then the Dam Commission was created to try to give more of a balance and give those three communities that are on the pond more control. So that's how that came about.
Okay, and I guess I'm kind of, again, I know it's a delicate balance, not only ecologically, but also politically.
Mm-hmm.
We have actually, the last 2 weeks have been the best weather of the entire summer. And I know that it is, the end of September. I know kids are back in school, college, that sort of thing. A lot of the seasonal people that live on the lake have left, like Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
What is the benefit of keeping the lake high if it's not used recreationally as much? And I know you mentioned duck hunters. I'm not a big waterfowl migratory bird hunter, but they usually don't start blasting around here until the 1st of October. So at dawn, yeah, like I'm a deer hunter, so I know that the law is 30 minutes before sunrise, but when they start blasting off an hour before sunrise, that's really not cool. But sorry, I digress. With the duck season not starting until the 1st of October, and then it's only 8 days later when they start to drain the lake, what advantage does that give to duck hunters?
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't think that's how necessarily the Dam Commission specifically operates now. I know that originally, even when the Dam Commission was created, it was supposed to be in the beginning of September. That has been pushed back to October. I don't know the steps in that process, but over the last 20-ish years since the Dam Commission's been around, and now sits there around the beginning of October. So I do not know. Yeah. And unfortunately, Dan was not able to make it to our meeting tonight to ask, but he did email and say that he would check out the recording afterwards. So if you, I would love to, I would love to know, I guess, the process behind that.
Well, and just also FYI for the people who are here tonight and whoever are watching the recording later, next Wednesday is the Dam Commission meeting at 6:30 at the Walestown office.
On October 4th. Correct?
Yeah, October 4th. Yeah, next Wednesday, I believe.
Do we know what the agenda is?
I know they're going to discuss the repair of the dam. I know that's going to be on there, and I believe they're opening up the dam shortly after. I think the 10th, if I remember correct. If what
The 8th.
The
the
8th
8th.
or 9th.
The 8th,
The 8th.
yeah. Thank you. And just for a mini plug about that, the new dam would give a lot finer control over it. They wouldn't need 6 people to go out on a day to coordinate that. And that's another issue too, like just how old the dam is. This, potentially could be, remote controlled in that way, or at least controllable by one person in that way. It's a lot for a lot finer of opening and closing. The fish ladder is something that I know we've all talked about a lot. I don't know if that's still on there, but as citizens of the towns, definitely like the repair of the dam is of utmost importance and is connected to the pond, the ecology of the pond too. That finer control would be very useful.
Another thing to add to that too is about, I think it was 2 years ago, we had such a dry summer that I had to pull my boats by mid-September because the water was so low with the dam closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the water is definitely not this high all the time. So I mean, sometimes I don't know the exact blueprints of the dam, but at some points there might not be enough water for it to release in that way.
Right.
I think that's
right
where
now, the water level right now is where it normally is around the 1st of August.
Yeah.
And it starts going down from there usually. This year it hasn't. It stayed right up.
One of the other things I was going to ask about, and I don't have a lot of experience or knowledge about, I've heard people talk about dredging.
Mhm.
What is that? I mean, is that where they go in and actually dig out the bottom of the lake, or? Yeah.
Yeah, and I am not as well versed on the finer aspects of it, but it does have that's essentially what would happen. And as far as my understanding is, it would like essentially remove some part of the top layer of the bottom of the soil that might have a lot of phosphorus in it. It is extremely expensive though, from my understanding. Yeah, which is not necessarily to say it's not worth it. Those are just questions.
Because my thought process, when they drain the lake down, they could go around the perimeter and dredge it there. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know enough about it, so.
And honestly, like these types of questions that we're asking and that we're talking about now, when we have that meeting with Addie from the Maine Department of Environmental Protections, who is going to talk to us about actually accessing that 604B grant, that allows us access to funds to create a watershed plan. This is the type of stuff we're going to try to figure out in that way. where to hit stuff, like what would be the most practical use of money, of time, like all of these things matter. Holly spoke last week about potential consultants out there that can actually try to estimate fairly accurately how much nutrients is actually being loaded into the pond, and where that's coming from. And so if it's more cost effective to target a larger chunk of that external loading, to make the biggest difference, that's where we would begin. And when I say data and stuff like that, we would need data to support where that stuff is coming from. But I mean, once we have it, like in like that specific of data, that's the stuff that's going to inform where we target, and which would provide the best possible outcome for however much funding we do have. And it doesn't have to stop after one project either. I mean, there are a lot of other grant opportunities out there that could potentially be utilized. But it is a long road, it is a long, long road. It
I
will
mean, I
be.
think other things like I've heard of a friend of mine had lived on a pond, and this guy he made a skimmer,
Mhm.
and he would skim the surface of the water, and then sell it to fertilizer or whatever came out of that as a nutrient stuff, and they stopped him from doing it.
Algae farms are used a lot in aquaponics, so for fertilizer and stuff like that. So I don't know much about it at all, but yeah, it certainly is interesting.
Has the Bates College research indicated where the sources are?
No, I mean, their data could allude to potentially where it is, but just in those 3 years that they have captured. There have been actual reports done by the Maine DEP, although they have been done over like 10 or 15 years ago at this point, that do talk about where a lot of it's coming from. And it's agriculture. And it historically is agriculture over the last 50 or so years. I'm sure all of you know that agriculture has declined in the area in that time significantly. It's certainly not like it was. But the thing is that the soil that was used is still in the surrounding watershed. You know what I mean? Like they might not be using it for farming anymore. It might just be an empty field, or covered in trees now. But that soil does contain, a lot of nutrients. And then when it rains or heavy rainfall happens, that then flushes it down into the pond. And also to the internal dynamics of the pond itself contribute a lot to how long that stays in the pond. And I did speak with Bates as well. I think they are talking amongst themselves about potentially having some type of written thing down from that presentation. And so they're going to get back to me on that process as well. So I would love to have something like that, just so maybe we can make some like actual informational stuff going on, and actually have some like bulleted summaries of like how that's going and have that information readily available. Which I think would be very useful. Justin?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Speaking about Bates College and kind of continuing the data collection points, and I know I brought this up in the meeting, what we could do as lake users and homeowners, kind of outdoor enthusiasts, and they were talking about that SECI reading.
Yeah.
Is there any other thing that would be beneficial for us to do? I know they talked a lot about dissolved oxygen, and Dan kind of piped up towards the end that apparently he's been doing this for the last 20 years, and has collected a lot of data points, and he was wondering if they had access to that for their data set points. Is there anything like some sort of training that we could get for us as lay persons who live on the lake to be able to collect data points, or what to do, or what would be, if it's dissolved oxygen and the SECI reading, how often we should do it, where we should do it on the lake, that sort of thing. If you're reaching out to Bates, I would, I'm just curious if that would be a good thing for us to pursue, where we have a lot of people now besides Dan who are invested in the lake and the health of the lake.
Absolutely. And I was actually just about to talk about this. So, and point out when you had talked about it, because the establishment of a monitoring program, just like a civilian group that does that, is super important. I definitely think we should do it. The Lake Stewards of Maine does have training. That's how I think Dan got originally his training way back when. Or maybe that might have been before, but they do active training for both of those tests, I believe. And I will certainly reach out to our contact at the Lake Stewards in Maine.
Kristen.
Tristan, yes, thank you so much, Tristan, to see how to get involved in that.
That reminds me that Diane Ficomey, who sometimes shows up at these meetings, she's in Texas right now. She didn't know if she'd be able to listen tonight, but I guess she's not here. But she said to me she'd be interested in volunteering, monitoring, like with the SECI system.
But we're still missing one. We got a treasurer, but we're looking for a secretary, general manager.
Just a minute. Dick, I'm on a meeting.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to meet. Well, good luck all.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we have a volunteer form go out after I talk to Tristan, and we try to collect some people who might be willing to do some trainings to maybe start out at the end of next year, at the beginning of next year, after the ice comes out, and then we can probably work out when to do it, how often and where, and specifically how to do it as well, and try to get those trainings done. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Justin, over the winter, I think that would be a great opportunity to really nail down that process, make some schedules, some backups as well. I did reach out to some schools, I have a couple relatives who are a teacher, and I reached out to an old high school science teacher at Oak Hill, and asked to do potentially some presentations for some of the kids, to try to, raise some awareness in some younger generations and stuff like that. So that might be a good opportunity too for high school kids. It would be a great experience, I think, and just a great opportunity to get involved in the community and learn some science and do some positive stuff. No guarantees. We're still kind of working out the details, but I think it would be a great opportunity. So I'm still going forward with that as well.
It sounds like it might be beneficial to have some of the SECI testing done in various different spots on the lake.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, and Dan has absolutely done a magnificent job over the last, 20, 30 years for all the data he did collect, but he was just one guy,
Just one location.
Just one, or I think one location at a time, essentially, it's important to try to collect and coordinate to try to gain a big picture. I mean, even Bates, with all the funding that they did have, I think maybe they had, a couple of people out there at a time collecting that information. Imagine if we could, every, couple times a week or maybe once a week, get quite a few people out there doing the same types of testing in different locations, and then having that data over the course of the summer.
With today's technology too, you can put a GPS location on every sample.
Exactly.
Just with your phone.
Yep.
I can give you some.
Yeah. No.
I'll volunteer to give it out of my little cove.
Yeah, I mean, if there's people out there that want to take people out on boats too, we would need that.
That's another thing Diane did. She took a reporter out this summer that wanted to do an article on some kind of fishing.
Mm-hmm.
She took him in her little aluminum boat and brought him around.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent way to get people involved. I definitely think a lot of coordination and planning over the winter is kind of like our next step forward. I'd really like to also, kind of incorporate as a nonprofit during that time too, just so we can start applying for maybe smaller grants, just to to pay for marketing stuff, or not like pens or anything, but just paper and ink and things like that. and you know, for equipment to get that going, because I'm not sure if the Lake Stewards of Maine would provide all of the stuff that we would need. I'll have to review the video again, but Holly did talk about quite a few different types of measurements out there. And I think you know, I definitely think with just a little bit of training, you know, I think that citizens in the community can start taking this stuff. You know, temperature is an easy one, you know, stuff like that. And then just kind of like really working out a schedule to make sure we try to hit all the spots that we can, and go from there. You know, the 604B grant, I believe that process takes about 2 years. So, I mean, that data would be extremely helpful to support any types of conclusions for the 319 grant that we would apply for afterwards, to actually implement those plans that we had kind of created during that 60B process. And then going from there, you know, I see really great opportunity here for coordination with the Dam Commission. I've offered my, you know, help for writing the grants for the dam, or helping with that if they want it, to get that funded. And I definitely think that more finer control of the dam itself would be a very valuable thing.
Does aerating
Sorry.
the lake, is that help put oxygen back in the water?
So if it was determined that, you know, the DO levels were pretty drastic, that is an option. I've never looked into it though. I think it's like it's kind of like what people from the only idea of it I have is literally when people do it in fish tanks,
Right.
big fish tanks. But I imagine it would be just like that, but on a much grander scale, of course. Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind there, Nick, too, is if they come up with some kind of a form for the, you know, Secchi testing, just make sure it's got GPS coordinates available on the form.
Yes. Yeah.
I did that Secchi training.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yes.
remember going to, I don't remember where it was. I remember it was on, it must have been at the lakes, the lakes business office there, and they have docks, and they were these glass cylinders that we would sink into the water. I didn't do it here on the lake, but you need a boat.
Yeah, and you know, that's an economic barrier for some that might not be involved. But if we could partner maybe with people who might not necessarily want to do like the actual testing part, but I have no problem taking somebody out for a half an hour on the day that they need to, like, I think that would be a great opportunity too. You know, like I said, we're all in this together in that way, and I think that's a great point. Yeah.
I think there's quite a few boats available in this group.
Yeah.
Can I pick your brain as a group when you watch the Bates presentation? Oh, it was 3 years, if I understand it correctly. And my understanding of it was that they were finding the points of contamination, might not be the best word, but points of phosphorus coming into the water, or high levels of phosphorus, were in different places each of those 3 years. Did I understand that the same way anybody else did, or is it all coming from the same dead river, or what did other people see evidence of in that?
So I think they only were showing the 2 years. They do have 3, but 2023's is not ready yet.
Okay.
And let me try to see if I can just pull it up and we can kind of, oh, actually, I don't know if they, yeah. From what I remember, and from my notes right here, it does seem that the blooms were focused in the center from what I remember, but the external loading, I think they said that that's not what they studied specifically, where it was specifically coming from. I think there are reports out there that I can send you, Donna, and I think they're actually on that Google Drive that I shared a while ago, but it does specify where the DEP thinks everything is coming from. And I can try to pull that up right now.
Yeah, because their testing station has been pretty much in the same spot. It's not like they move it around.
Justin?
No, I just wanted to reply to Donna. I'm looking at my notes here as well, and what I remember kind of really shocked and surprised me was the best water quality results seem to be at the north end of the lake where the river, Dead River, comes in, and then down by the dam, where site 0 was. Site 1 is the buoy, and site 2 was kind of the middle of the lake, right out just to the north of the cove where I live. And that's where the worst readings were, which kind of surprised me. But then the more I thought about it, it's like, well, the water comes in at, the north end of the lake, site 4, and then site 0, which was down closer to the dam, is where the water goes out. So, more of a changeover in those areas, but kind of the middle of the lake was the dead spot, which is what I had written down in my notes. And I kind of found that very shocking, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, that's exactly what I was wanting to hear other people's opinion about. So the way you heard it was that the flow comes from the north, but the highest levels of phosphorus were in the middle of the lake. Is that what you're saying, Justin?
Yeah, from what I remember, Donna, and just looking at my notes, there was one data point in August, and I believe it was 2021 or 22, where site 4, which was the north end of the lake at the Dead River, really spiked on some readings. And Nick, I think, had mentioned that might have been when that really nasty bloom stuff that you saw right by your house. I think
that was like the
case.
July 22nd.
But other than that, those readings at site 4 by the Dead River and site 0 closer to the dam were pretty low compared to the buoy in the middle of the lake.
I think some of those indications may be actually related to the depth and the locations. Because I think the middle of the lake is one of the shallower areas, as I recall. And down toward the dam, it's quite a bit deeper. So that may make a difference. I don't know.
I know they
That's interesting.
Yeah, they did specifically mention the flow of like incoming to like oh my God, I'm missing out the word I can't think of the word. When you add more liquid into something to like kind of dilute, yeah, dilute it down essentially, yeah, from the Dead River. And yes, Justin, the spike was, I think they did specifically say it was that really blue algae. Yeah.
Which is the algae on the picture that you put on the flyer.
Yeah. Yeah.
All good stuff. I like this discussion.
Me too.
Yeah.
Any
That's
other?
one of those things I usually keep an eye on the depth of when I'm out in the pontoon boat, but my depth finder sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Depends on how fast I'm going and how clear the water is.
Mhm.
But the middle of the lake is shallower than, let's say, where the north end Dead River is, or the dam.
I don't remember what the depths are in that cove up on the north end, but from what I remember, the west side of the lake is deeper than the center. There's 12 to 18 feet over on that shore in that area. When you get up toward the north end of the lake, it's only 8 to 10.
Do you guys see this map?
Yeah, that's the map.
Okay. I love it when you do this, Nick.
So these little numbers, let me zoom in here. So this is from let's see.
Yeah, that's your depth chart.
Yeah, surveyed in June 1940. Okay.
Oh my God, before I was born.
Yeah, that's Dead River right there. So I think these numbers are the feet level. So 3, 4, 11, 4, 4.
Yeah, so you're talking about 10 to 12 feet in that cove.
Yeah, 10, 13, 13, 10. Yep. Mars Point, there we go. 14, 18, 18, 18, 18 there. And then Martin's Point would be right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
13.
Yeah, but you got some 16, 18s in there too.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look much shallower in the middle of the lake.
I found that the shallowest part is almost across from Martin's Point on the eastern shore. Is that right? Does that make sense?
It says 13. Oh,
Yes.
across from where?
Martin's
Martin's Point?
So yeah, it would be
Oh,
at 7,
yeah.
6, yeah,
Oh.
8, 7, 6, yeah.
Over in our area, it's definitely shallower.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And in
Yeah,
the summer,
that's,
you gotta
that's
be
where
very,
Dan is too.
yeah.
Okay.
And I've always found that for me personally, my little depth finder off the point by Mars Point there with the white home with a nice stone wall around the front of it.
Yeah, Eileen's Crossman. Yeah.
Yeah, I've found that that's like 20, 21 feet deep there.
Ah,
Are you hungry? Come on. You want to eat?
It must have been this summer while the water was up.
Yeah, it could be because that's what because I was noticing my fish finder was finding quite a few fish and it was 21 feet deep.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find a more updated one. That was from the 1940s right there.
As I haven't seen anything on my depth finder going to 20 feet. But like I say, I can't always depend on it because it depends on how clear the water is. It's a radar sensor, and if it doesn't get a signal back, it says, I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it honestly, I find it all along the shoreline is 18, 20, 21 feet deep.
look at that.
There we
Yeah,
go.
there's a good chart.
Yeah.
So yeah, right here, in the center of this area, in the southern part, it is about 7, 8 feet deep, 10 feet deep. Then it drops off to about 19 right there.
Yeah.
Wayne, you were talking about Mars Point?
Yeah.
On the
Yeah.
point the White House is on the corner.
Oh, yeah. Look, what's it say? 30?
Yeah,
Wow.
No.
I know I see 20, well, not on the map. I can't see it. My eyes aren't that good, but on my depth finder, it was showing 20, 21 feet.
Right
It's
here,
looking
it's yeah, right here it
10.
says about 18. Right here is about 10, but 19 right here, or 15 right here. Sorry, 15, 16. And I mean, I don't. This. Oh, sorry.
And see, there are some shallow spots toward the center.
Yeah.
Yeah. 18 there, and then yeah, it looks like it picks up 8, 9 right here.
It's
5,
interesting
6.
that it's deep in front of my house, but I get a lot of algae.
So do I.
The wind has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Another. I'm going to add that to the overlay for when I actually do map out all your guys' pictures. That would
Yeah,
be
see,
the
if you look
dam.
at the color coding on that chart though, there's a big section there in front of Martin's Point that's from there north. It's quite a bit shallower in the center.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, right around here.
Did
I know-
anybody besides me get an island landing on their property during the Hurricane Lee? Do you know what I'm talking about with the islands floating around?
No,
No? Nobody got any islands, or you don't know what they are?
no,
I'm
what's
just
an
wondering,
island?
where do they come from?
Wonder if they're coming from the marsh up north on the north end.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. It breaks off, little chunks break off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one years.
You sent me that picture, right, Donna?
I did, of the one a few years ago that took my whole dock off and my boats, and they started traveling down south.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, like last week, another one lodged itself in next to my dock, but it worked itself out and went west and south in the cove, and then came back out to the middle of the lake and headed south. Somebody's got it.
Oh.
The dam will suck it in.
The dam will suck it in. Is that what you said?
It might.
It's big. I mean, it's like adding property value to your property.
No, I don't want it up against my boats, but I don't want it against the dock either.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, it took a couple of years ago, it took my whole dock right off its hinges, my floating dock right off its hinges.
So for next week, I'll make sure to make a couple announcements about the dam commission meeting coming up on our social media and stuff like that, just to try to get the word out there.
So we're not gonna have a Zoom meeting of this group at the same time, are we? Or are we?
No, we are not. So our next meeting will be the 11th, and I'll make sure to communicate that in the email that I send out. I will also reach out to Tristan. I'm not and try to start that process, because I think that's super important to try to nail this down while it's winter, and and we're ready to go for next year. Should be good there. See my notes.
I'm just curious that, that little area where I show you where my cove is, that little cove where I live on that map.
Yeah. Let me pull up the map.
Yeah, pull it up. I can't remember where he is.
It's between Nason Rock Rock Road and Hot Dog Road. So it's on the east, almost across from you on the west side.
Almost across from Mars Point?
Yes, on the west side.
Okay.
I can look out and see the buoy in the middle of the lake from my dock.
Right here, Wayne, can you see that? This is Nason Rock Road. Oh, this is Nason Rock Road, and then Hot Dog Road is right up here.
Yeah, it's that little inlet there. Is that an inlet?
I don't think it has the little river inlet on the map itself, but yeah, you are right around here, correct?
Yeah, I didn't know if there, because it goes up in, I didn't know if there was water coming in from Sawyer Road into the pond. Because
I know the inlet you're talking about. It's a good question.
Well, isn't there a pretty large hill right there around that side of you? Yeah, I imagine definitely water does run down that and then right into the pond. Yeah.
Because that little where my spot is in the summertime is probably at my dock is probably 2.5, 3 feet of water.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go out beyond, probably maybe 50 yards out, it's probably 12 feet deep. But I didn't know if there was a little river or something coming into that inlet, but it sounds like it's just runoff from the mountain.
It might be. Hold on, let me just pull up an actual regular map real quick.
Beautiful.
Right here is where it is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like it starts right here. I do have a topographic. 1 second.
It does look like a little stream coming through there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be going to the pond. Now, what's the flow like where that is, where you live? Is it flowing out or in? Yeah.
Nick, it's the little pond up by the apple orchard, by the horse farm, on top of the hill on Sawyer Road.
Right up. Oh, this right here?
Yeah, there's that little pond right there that runs across the road where the apple, the road to the apple orchard.
Yes, yeah.
Yep, that runs right down through there, right down to the lake.
This one does. We were wondering about this one right here.
Yeah, that one too.
Okay.
Yeah, right into my little cove, because I said it has to go somewhere. You can't get up in there, but sometimes you can see the flow of the algae on the top floating out.
Yeah, the hill's over on that side.
Oh yeah, look, yeah, there's the hill.
That's coming in.
Yeah, that's up by the apple orchard right there. You might get some runoff from that apple orchard, all the stuff that they put on the trees and all that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Then That'd be a good place to put up one of those hay bale dams.
Yes,
It's a filter.
that'd be a
Yeah,
good
you-
place. That would be a
Yeah.
great, it'd be a great place for me to test next summer too, to see if there's anything coming in from that area.
Yeah, all those
Yeah.
apple trees up there get sprayed every springtime, I would imagine, and all that, everything goes right, into the ground down to the lake.
Don't they
Yeah.
also grow grapes up there for their winery?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a good spot to be testing, I think.
Yeah, wouldn't hurt to know.
Yeah, I'd like to know. Yeah.
Yeah, not to like target blame, but just
No.
let's look. Yeah.
I mean, the largest source of external loading is agriculture for sure.
Yeah.
And that's all around the lake, not specifically just that side either.
Yeah.
But definitely keep me on that list of wanting to help with the testing.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm gonna email Wayne tomorrow morning. Or not Wayne, you're Wayne. I'm gonna email Tristan tomorrow. I was writing down your name, that's why I said that. I'm gonna email Tristan tomorrow morning and try to see what that process looks like. And then see how figure out how long the training is. And I think it is you must have done like a day session or something like that, or a
Yeah.
couple. Yeah.
It was probably a few hours. Maybe, I'm sure it included a nice lunch.
I remember their promotional material for the training this year, and I think it happened sometime in August, or not August, maybe July, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'll be
I'll ask about.
available next spring.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I definitely, it's a great thing to try to work on in the winter time. So awesome. Any other things before we close out? We got about 8 minutes. Any other questions from our meeting with Bates, or did you guys like that? I can keep trying to get maybe people from not necessarily Sabattus, but maybe other ponds across the country that might have been dealing with this, maybe other researchers. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So I thoroughly enjoyed that presentation. I would like to collaborate, if not with them, with somebody else, with the research that we're talking about in data collection points, if we can get that training through the Lake Stewards of Maine. The other thing that I found very surprising, and I wrote in my notes, was that Holly Ewing lives in Greene.
Yeah.
And for someone who lives kind of in the Watershed district, I'm wondering how we would be able to get her more involved in our local in her local community watershed with this project. I'm not exactly sure where she is in Greene, but Greene is a part of the lake, and protecting the lake, and she would be an amazing resource if we were able to bring her on board, whether it's in a consulting role or whatever she may have time for. I'm sure she's a very busy professor there at the college. The only other question I had is, I know, last week we were off and then we had the Bates meeting and some stuff like that. Now that we are coming into fall and winter, and I know that you had worked really hard with the group in a couple meetings this summer I wasn't able to attend, with the stakeholder meetings. That may be a good time for some of us who remain local to go out and kind of educate some people. The biggest one I'm thinking of is, I think it's great that you're reaching out to the schools. I would imagine this year they're probably going to try to have the ice fishing derby, where it was canceled last year. Maybe that's something that we could get like some information together, maybe a little tent set up, and pass out some information around the lake during that time, because that is probably the busiest that the lake is, that one day in February when they do the ice derby.
Absolutely.
Down at that access point, where the modular home is by the beach there, isn't that where they access it? Or how do most of the fishermen get onto the lake for the derby?
So they have a big parking area off of Libby Road in the field, and they kind of access it right through the cove where I live. But I'm sure people park all over. But that's kind of where they have everything set up: the weigh station, the vendors, kind of the weigh in at the end of the day. I mean, there's there's thousands of people there, and that's kind of where they all tend to congregate at the end of the day or throughout the day when they're coming in, getting their fish weighed and stuff like that.
Down by Sunset Cove?
The next road up, it would be Libby Road, is where they park.
Really?
So right there, Libby Road, right, literally where the cursor is,
Yeah.
they park everybody right in that field.
Which town is that?
I didn't know.
In
that.
Wales.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
we hire
Oh.
security at the top of our road. $350 to have someone sit there all night and not let people come down and park on our road.
Has anybody heard if they're still doing the motorcycle racing?
On the lake.
Yeah,
So they
They do.
usually do that in our cove, and I haven't seen that for probably 3 years. I don't think they've done it since COVID, but it was actually kind of cool to go watch them do it that weekend they were out there.
I was gonna say that's another avenue to get the word out if they do it.
Absolutely. There's also a person who I went to high school with. She has a nonprofit in the area, and a Diedrich at the Community Cares Backpack Program. But she hosts a resource fair every year. I think in the springtime, right, Dad?
Yeah, springtime next.
In the springtime, where there's a bunch of different booths and like things like that. And I think just the general word is like, and Justin, thanks for bringing this up. It's just like some working on some communication material that we can pass out. And that's what I was hoping to with the coordination with Bates and getting that stuff written down too, and getting that down.
Yep, you.
But having that stuff on hand and ready to go, definitely we can start to get to work on that for sure. We have the stakeholder stuff that I was hoping to try to get to a little bit today, but we most likely will not in the next 3 minutes, but I will keep it on there. We still have it going. Justin? Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm hogging most of the airtime tonight.
No.
Leslie just brought up a good point. And for anybody who's on, or for people who watch this later, or maybe we could add this to the agenda. Every year since I've lived here, when they drain the lake in the fall, I've done a trash pickup in my cove. I have gone from the first 2 years I've done it, 2 pickup trucks full of debris out of the lake, to now we probably get maybe 3 or 4 or 5 gallon pails. And that's anything from deflated beach balls, beer cans, shotgun shells and water, lures, fishing line, that sort of thing. The first couple of years were tires, engine blocks,
Wow.
railroad ties. That was really fun to fish out of the mud for however long it had been there. But I would encourage, maybe we can also get something out on the social media page when they do drain the lake and before the cold weather sets in, for people to do pickups in front of their properties and try to get whatever in there that shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. When do you usually do that, Justin? Is it just kind of something you orchestrate on your road, or?
Yeah, so I do it. Yes, we try to get the kids out there. But no, the first year I lived here, when they drained the water, I went out for a walk and I noticed tires and engine blocks and just everything. So I just started yarding. I mean, I had piles through the whole cove, and then just hefted them up on a shore and put them in a pickup truck and hauled them away. Now it's pretty much every day in the afternoon or on the weekends, we'll go for a walk in the cove with a 5 gallon pail. And literally we walk the same path every day, and we were always finding something new. If it's rained the night before or whatever happened to kind of turn over the sand and the soil. I think any little bit helps. If Dan watches this later, I think it was 2 years ago or so, or 3 years ago, they let the water out of the lake. I've never seen the lake that low. I was probably 700 to 800 yards from the shoreline in knee-deep water, pulling out a bunch of stuff that I'd never known was out there because it had always been covered.
Yeah.
No, it's just kind of something I passes the time on a day off, just to go out and spend a beautiful fall afternoon out on the shore and picking up some trash and litter and stuff. So if that might be a good thing moving forward. you know, kind of how we talked about getting the community involved and everybody who lives on the lake with data points in the summer is if you just clean up 100 feet or 100 yards right and left of your dock, every little bit helps.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Justin, isn't it a bit irritating that then you have to go to the transfer station and pay to dispose of somebody else's trash?
Well, so I will say, Donna, that the first year that I rolled in there with a pickup truck full, bed full of old tires and stuff like that, I went right to the person in Monmouth and said, "This is from the lake. I picked it out of the lake." And when I showed them a tire that probably came off a 34 Ford, with the white walls on it, and they like, "Yeah, that's nothing that you would ever that has been used in the last 50 years." They let me dump it for free.
That's good. That's
So
great.
that was really encouraging for them to do that.
Yeah.
I know that there has been a lot of changeover at the transfer station in Monmouth. So I don't know how that would work. Say if you were up by your house, Donna, and what you found in what was found on the shoreline when the water went down, and you know what they would let you do for dumping now. But they have in the past let me dump everything for free. But like I said, now I'm just getting 5-gallon pails. I just put it in a trash bag.
Even
Sabattus,
still,
yeah, Sabattus has done that in the past too. After stuff I picked up out of the woods and old mattresses, sheetrock, and all that, they'll let me dump it for free.
yeah,
You just tell them, you just talk to the guy there.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can kind of set a precedent maybe.
it's certainly something to. I mean, I can just send out an email and just see, just to make sure, like that if Justin, if we do set up when we do set up something, that if somebody does find something big, we can just let people know that they can throw it away if you know, the transfer station doesn't.
Yeah, and if
allow it,
people
yeah.
need help, I'm around. I have a truck. I have access to a trailer. I can. I'm not very handy when it comes to building or mechanical, but I can lift heavy things. So I don't mind. I don't mind providing physical labor.
Oh, Justin, you're my man. Leslie, you gotta keep her.
I'm gonna email you after this, Justin. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And whatever I can do to help out, you know, I can be a point of contact with the dump. I was actually offered a job in Monmouth the other day when I went,
Awesome.
because they don't have staffing, and their public works is staffing the transfer station in Monmouth. I've never been to Sabattus. I don't know what would be better if we have just one collection point where this is where all the lake debris is taken. Because you know, the cynic in me with my professional career, you know, if somebody's going to roll in there with a bunch of trash and that they said they found in the lake and be able to dump it for free and not pay for it, and then that benefit will end very quickly.
Yeah.
So
it might be important too to try to spread it out to the 3 towns. I'm not sure what Green does, but just, you know, if it's on the Green side, if you're a resident of Green, I guess, bring it to Green in that way. That way it's like a shared load. I mean, just an idea, but yeah.
Yeah, and even if we start small this year and everyone does their own collection in a small way, we can think about, you know, starting small and then growing and working with the town municipalities on the waste. But the idea of a collectively having a day, you know, maybe we pick a weekend in early November just as a starting point for people who are
you mean on
around.
Sunday because we hunt on Saturday?
You know, depending on weather, and then, you know, pick a date and a rain date that people can feel like we're all doing it together. And then that builds year over year, because that's something, you know, kids can get involved in. Every
Yeah.
kids pick up trash too, but and that's like just a little seed you're planting on like the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And you know, that's exactly what all this is about, is just starting those relationships, especially with like the communities and like even the municipalities and even the transfer station, you know, hearing our name and interacting with us, and then it just builds from there. So excellent. This is wonderful.
Early November is a good time too, because the ground is starting to harden up.
Leslie's always looking after the kids.
Is there anybody else who wants to be included on that email when I reach out to Justin to be part of the coordination or anything like that, or just shooting some ideas back and forth?
Nick, I'm happy to help. Sorry for being late.
Oh, no.
Hi.
And for being absent. Hi, everybody. I'm out of state.
I'm happy to help too.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
You're
Happy
talking about,
birthday.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Donna.
So you're talking about next spring, right, for the testing?
Yes, yeah. So like I'm gonna reach out to are you talking about the Lakes, Rivers, and Main stuff?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I'm gonna reach out to Tristan, and I have your name on the list, Wayne, for that. And I'm just gonna build from there. I just want to
Yep.
know what the process is for that training, just so when I do send out, like we're looking for people to do this next spring, I have all the information right there for them. So
Because I'm more than
But my-
happy to.
Put my name on that list too, Nick. I can't guarantee how consistent I can be, but we're up there, frequently.
oh yeah, no, absolutely. I honestly that anything helps. Justin?
Plus, it's boats available.
Oh yeah, which is a big plus. Yeah.
Sorry, Nick. The only other thing I wanted to add, and I tried to block out the pain, but Georgia just reminded me, because we worked on the logging information on Sabattus Mountain. It kind of crushes our soul every day when we drive in and out and see more of the trees gone on Sabattus Mountain. What I will try to do is I will try to get some pictures and send them to you, Nick, so you can have those and just see what it looks like and how much the side of the mountain has changed since they've started expanding their harvest up there.
Yeah.
They're
So
not
it's
leaving
been
much behind.
getting
I
bigger.
can give a little bit of an update because I talked to Shane, who is the forestry guy, our district forestry guy. He said, because I had gotten in touch with him when they started going into Wales, so it's a different landowner. And he looked at the clear cutting standards and went over there with a helicopter to do some aerial surveillance. It's the same company that did the Sabattus parcel. And he said that they, we're keeping an eye on what's happening there. And so, hopefully everybody is aware of that. And he thought that that they would be. So, which might be the best that we can do. But I will agree with Justin. The word soul crushing is accurate.
I just think it's important to note that if we hadn't been grouped together in doing this, that action wouldn't have happened. So forward progress certainly in that way. So
Yeah, and he mentioned that they might be inspecting the site too.
okay, awesome, great. Anything else before we go? It is 7:08. Any other questions, concerns? I'll post this video tomorrow morning and send out those emails and everything like that. But we will not be having a meeting next week because it's the Dam Commission meeting. I encourage everybody who is watching this and here now to try to attend. It is October 4th, Wednesday, October 4th, which is next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at the Wales Town Hall. I'll post it out on our Facebook page, our Instagram, and our email list as well. So,
All right. Good meeting. Thank you, Nick.
not a problem. You all have a great night. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything, and have a great week. I'll see you in 2 weeks. If somebody could let me know how the Dam Commission meeting goes, I'd appreciate it. They don't live stream.
You're not going to drive up here for the night?
It's a heck of a drive. I did get a job though, so
That was great.
Congratulations.
thank
gonna-
you. Yeah, it
You gonna
starts.
tell us about that?
Yeah. So I just.
And did you tell them that you're busy on Wednesdays?
I told them that I